Hey, what's up everybody? It's BDL44 coming at you with another video. Alright, I'm going to try a third time to make the video I've been making for the last, say, 20 minutes. Had a couple people knock on my door, stuff like that. So let's try to get this done here. Basically, the conversation here that I'm having with you guys is the Ben Simmons conversation as it pertains to do I think he can play with Joel Embiid in a different setting, in a different system? What type of situation do I think would be ideal for Ben Simmons? If not, that kind of thing. And I've been, trying to work this out. In my mind, I see it like this: Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons can absolutely play with one another. They just have to be in a system where there's a third player on the floor who can both facilitate and be a perimeter threat, slashing threat. In other words, they need an all-around guy who can make others better. Now, why is it important that this particular player make others better and be a threat from all those different angles, be a complete player? Because what you want to do is create a third dynamic that can take the pressure and the focus off of those two offensively so that they can kind of be more multidimensional. I look at the situation, I say, for example, AD and Bron, or excuse me, Westbrook and Bron. They don't necessarily fit together unless you have Anthony in place, because you don't have Bron and Westbrook trying to figure out how they can play off one another, both of them being non-shooters to a degree and things like that. What you end up having is a dynamic where they can both get the ball to Anthony Davis and finish plays that way. It's not on them to finish plays. It's not on them to figure it out amongst themselves. It's on them both to get him the ball, right? That's a dynamic that works. It takes two pieces that doesn't fit and glues them together. That's what you need for Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. But the thing about it is, it's even less of a fit between those two because Joel Embiid is such a opposing threat as it pertains to once he gets the ball, it kind of stays with him. I'm not going to say he's a ball stopper necessarily, but you kind of want him to be, because in theory, he's the Anthony Davis. But he's not agile like that. As great as he is, and he's very great, he's a real traditional one. He doesn't have guard ways. So he's kind of more stationary. Once he gets it, the play is going to finish. You're going to get the 2 or 3 points, but it's going to take 16, 17 seconds off of the clock in theory. If you have that third passer, shooter, Ben Simmons can get him the ball. He can get Ben the ball. He can get Joel the ball, that kind of thing, and still be a threat where Ben Simmons is not. I look at Tobias Harris and love him as a third player, but he's not the fit that I'm talking about, because he's not going to facilitate the ball to Ben. He's not going to find Ben cutting. He's not going to find Joel cutting. That's not his game. He's not looking for others. He shoot first, and he's going to be somebody that's a recipient of those plays. He fits with Ben. He fits with Joel, but he's not the player that makes them fit with one another. Do you see what I'm saying? That's what they miss. They miss that Paul George, DeMar DeRozan-ish player who can do some facilitating, just enough facilitating. Who else? Jaylen Brown. I think of all these players who have that ability. The best of them, are out there, and they can make those two fit if they were to just come to Philly right now. Like, they would make those two fit, in my opinion. So that's what Philly needs. They need something like that, man, because otherwise what you have is Ben Simmons kind of just sitting there as a non-shooting threat on the perimeter, waiting for for Joel Embiid to finish play so we can get back on D, rather than being a threat himself, slashing and passing and getting somebody else the ball. If you get that facilitating presence, that scoring facilitating presence on the floor, he will then put all of them in a position to just not have to worry so much about their flaws offensively, not worry so much about where they're at on the floor, and he can finish plays for both of them. That's what they miss. They miss that dynamic. Someone needs to be able to get Ben the ball. And I think that's what's lost in all of this. That's what's lost. Who's getting Ben the ball? Yes, is Ben getting the ball to others? Of course. Is Ben playing amazing defense? Of course. Is Ben a non-shooting threat, so in theory you don't want to look for him? One would think so. But you have to understand, Ben Simmons is an offensive player who can slash, catch lobs. He's an offensive player who can make hockey passes, get to the line. Even though he's not a good free throw shooter at this stage in his game, we know he can improve there. We need to be able to do little hook shots, inside floaters, things like that. Ben Simmons is more than capable of scoring the basketball in his spots. The question is, who's looking for him? Who on the Philadelphia 76ers is literally ever looking for Ben Simmons? And that is why I think the third option needs to be a facilitator. Because the dynamic that Ben is missing is the guy looking for him, making him feel good about what it is that he is doing, scoring the ball. And then once he has that in place, then he can be more of a facilitator because it opens up the game for him even more now that he's not looked at to just be the guy looking to get somebody else the ball. So there's a lot of dynamics involved to make Ben Simmons work. And the Philadelphia 76ers have literally never, ever put the pieces around him that make him work. And see, that's the thing. That's the thing, Philly. You got to understand this. When you got Ben Simmons, it was understood the day he was drafted that he needed a certain type of team in order to get the most out of him. That was understood. You already had Joel Embiid in place. That dynamic looked funny that day. To see how it played out over these last several years is only a partial shock because of how it turned out ultimately, based on the success that they've had together and being able to be one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. They shouldn't even been able to do that in theory when you consider how many different obstacles they have offensively as a tandem. What makes them incredibly difficult to beat is the fact that they're the best defensive tandem in the league. People don't really look at it like that, but Joel Embiid is an elite defender, and of course Ben Simmons is an elite defender. That's why they've been able to get to conference finals and close in the second round, all this stuff. If you would have gave them that third player that can help make them come together and gel a little better, a piece that would have just simply put it in perspective, you would find that this team would have probably already been to a final by now. They probably would have gotten a championship in some cases. You just need to understand that Ben Simmons is not just a player who doesn't shoot, plays defense, and looks to pass. He's also someone who can put the ball in the hoop if given the right looks. Now, I know he's not a perimeter threat. I get that. Of course he's not a perimeter threat. That's the point. But do not act as if he can't score 20 points when he's one of the best cutters in basketball. He sees angles better than most, so of course he can put himself in positions to get open. I blame the Philadelphia 76ers for why Ben Simmons has not developed properly. I blame the Philadelphia 76ers for why Ben Simmons doesn't have the players around him to make it work. I blame Ben Simmons for leaving a coach in place that didn't put him in positions to succeed too long, and I blame them for bringing in a coach that they know probably was not going to be able to be patient enough to put up with the flaws that are provided in the situation. Doc Rivers is ready to win. He don't want to have to deal with puzzle pieces and different things that don't fit. He just wants to take a team that's ready to go, motivate them, and push them to their best selves. It's not necessarily his best attribute trying to make things that don't fit. It didn't really work in Clipperland when they didn't have a small forward and were having all kinds of issues there. They weren't able to overcome them, and he's not able to overcome this. I'm not saying you fire Doc Rivers, but you do need to accept the fact that it's time to move on from Ben Simmons. That's the moral of everything. You don't have what you need to make Ben Simmons happy or play his best basketball. You just don't have that. You don't even have the capability of bringing that stuff to him. Nor do you have plans of doing that because it's not in your best interest to do so, because you have a better player on your team that you're building around, and that is what you need to consider when you're going through this process. It's like, okay, you want to retain Ben Simmons and keep his value and all this. You got your pride wrapped up in the idea that you could have got James Harden, but you didn't. And there's no guarantee that any of this is going to play out the way that it appears it is. Who's to say that them trading for James Harden wouldn't have been a mistake? Maybe James Harden comes there and suddenly breaks his leg and never plays for them. There's a lot of different scenarios that you can't account for. We can't just look at the situation and say, well, we didn't get James Harden for him, so we're damn near not going to trade him for anything less than James Harden. You're never going to get James Harden again. That value shouldn't have been on the table that day. Let's just be honest. Nobody should have been giving you James Harden for Ben Simmons. That should have never even been taking place. So at this point, in my mind, I'm just saying, well, just send Ben Simmons to a place that will allow him to be himself. That's all. The pride aspect of it for Philly, the I don't want to leave him feeling like he's controlling the narrative because the next guy is going to feel that way. All of that stuff does not take into account that this is somebody under distress. that Ben Simmons is under distress, that this is a young person who's in a situation where they're ready to give away a good portion of their wealth just to be happy. That's a mental health situation. Do we not grasp that this is not a rational person's decision, that this is a desperate person's decision, and no one in his circumstances should be desperate. Do you understand what I'm saying? He's a millionaire, hundreds of millions of dollars getting paid to do what he loves to do, and he's in a desperate situation to get out of the situation he's in, to the point where he doesn't even care if the situation he's going to could particularly be worse. He just wants something else. That's a mental health situation. He's foregoing certain things that protect his future. He's foregoing certain things that are going to help his situation. People need to stop and just look at what's going on there. Let's look at it. This is someone who has all the money in the world saying that I'm willing to give it all up just to get away from a situation that really a lot of us would love to be in. Not necessarily because anyone did anything to him per se, but because he is having troubles with absorbing what's coming his way in regards to his situation. He's avoiding certain things, certain perceptions that he doesn't want to face. This is mental health stuff. And I'll tell you right now, if a person, this is scary to me in a way, because you start thinking about people who like start giving away all of their possessions. Those are signs. When a rich man starts just giving away everything, I got $1 billion, I'm just going to give it to the child's organization. That person's expecting for some things to take place that probably the rest of us are not. You understand what I'm saying? When a person does something like that, they're preparing for something. They're ready to depart in some cases. I'm not saying that's where Ben Simmons is at, but what I'm saying is this is along the same lines as it pertains to I'm willing to give away everything. I'm willing to walk away from everything just so that I can get out of this situation that I perceive to be whatever. Philadelphia, the Philadelphia 76ers sports organization does not need to be seen as a bully in the midst of this perception. Because if I have this perception, I'm sure there are a million Americans that feel the same way. Yes, is Ben Simmons appearing to be a immature young child who's spoiled and all of this, that, and the third? Yes, all of that looks as it does. Could this be something much worse than that? Yes, it could. And we are smart enough of a society to understand that this could be that. This could be something else. This could be a very serious situation for his mindset. And being that he was afraid to shoot the ball. These are irrational fears, y'all. These are phobias. Afraid to shoot the basketball when you're a basketball player? Come on now. That's trauma. I'm not a mental health expert or even a mental health studying person. But I know trauma when I see it. I know when someone's reacting to trauma. That's reacting to trauma. What side of this do you want to be on, Philadelphia? Because when we come out 5-6 years ago and find out exactly what this man's suffering from, and we find out that you were triggering all of his worst stuff, you were poking all the wrong buttons for his mental health, it's going to fall back on y'all in ways that you can't even see right now. It's going to fall back on you in ways that you can't even fathom. You sitting up here trying to build a basketball team, and we're talking about somebody's mental health. You really want to be on the wrong side of that? I'm the only person saying anything about this. But nobody has foresight in situations that are drastic. It's always what I wish would have said afterward. Oh, what I wish I would have said if I had a chance. I knew something was wrong. I didn't say nothing. Oh, I wish I could have just went back and let him know I cared about him. No, tell him now. If you have an inkling that there's a situation that could be dire in a person's mind, tell him now. Don't wait. If you see something, tell us now. That's what you do in situations. I'm not sitting here saying that Ben Simmons is this, that, and the third. I don't know his mindset. But what I'm saying is the signs are there that this is something that we need to be looking at a more serious way, in a more serious way. Basketball's cool. I love talking basketball. Nothing makes me happier than sitting here talking basketball. But when we start talking about mental health, it has ramifications for others, and that's why I speak in this tone. Because when you're dealing with sick people, and I've dealt with sick people, when you're dealing with sick people, it's not just the sick person you got to consider. It's the people that they are affecting with their presence, with their energy, with whatever. They too affect others. So, let's just calm down with this Ben Simmons thing. Particularly, I'm speaking to the Philadelphia organization. I understand you have a organization to run, and you have certain things that you want to consider, particularly in the short term in regards to basketball players. But you remember this. With respects to Ben Simmons, I don't think that in Ben Simmons' case, you are going to look at the next athlete and say he's going to make those decisions in those circumstances. I think Ben Simmons is making unique decisions to his own mindset. And what I think we need to look at it specifically is that this is not one of those situations where we say we need to make an example of this player to let other players know they can't do what he did, because I don't think other players do what he does. Maybe I'm naive for saying that, but what I'm trying to convey is I don't think the same motivating factors are going to play a part into what the next player does. The next player is going to have a more reality-based intuition, not intuition. He's going to have a more reality-based reaction to things that are happening around him. It's not going to be just emotional. It's not just going to be, I'm desperate, I want to get out of here, I don't care about nothing, I just want out of here. That's a sick person's decision making, is what I'm trying to tell you. That's what I'm saying to you. So yeah, cut ties with Ben Simmons, put him in a position to get the help that he needs, both on the court and whatever else is necessary. Because anything else in that is basically, if this goes left, turns into bullying on the Philadelphia 76ers part. And that could be all kinds of different things that I don't know nothing about. When you start talking about what happens after that, I don't know. But I know they don't want to be in that situation. I know that. Media too. One of these days, I don't know when it's going to happen, I think Kwame Brown's situation was an awakening for everyone in this space. We have to understand that athletes are still people. Athletes still go through things. Athletes, even though they make a lot of money, they may not feel like they have a lot of freedom. So they may not feel as luxurious as maybe their appearance, their lifestyle looks. Especially if they're in situations like this where they're stuck in bad contracts that they can't get out of. A millionaire don't feel like my dream of what a millionaire feels like in that circumstance. I respect that. I think at the end of the day, we have to remember that these players only have a short amount of time to do what it is that they do. These organizations have lifetime to do what it is that they do. The Philadelphia 76ers have things to consider because of that coincide with their decision making. I can see that part. But they also have to be able to think as well along the lines of cutting your losses when situations start looking a little murky. And this Ben Simmons situation has been looking murky to me for about a month now, as it pertains to Philly having a right to do something, but should they use that right? Are they right for using that right? That's what starts to play in mind for myself. Like, is this the right move? Are you taking advantage of someone who's not in their right space right now? Are you taking advantage of someone who's really, really hurting and applying standards to someone that isn't hurting to them? You know what I mean? Coupling him with somebody that he's not. Just can't do that. Can't do that. In business, especially in these sensitive times, mental health times, identity times, you cannot be a bully. That's the moral of my point. That's all I have to really say, man. I'm not going to sit up here after all of this and say that I'm worried about Ben Simmons per se. I think he'll be fine once he gets out of this situation. But as long as he's in this situation, he's facing a lot of pressure and trauma, and it seems to me that he's doing everything that he can to avoid those things. I would ask him, are you sure you want to play basketball? I would. If I knew him and I knew him well, I would ask him. And I'd ask him to think about that for several days. Just that one single point. Because when you fight this hard to get where you're at, you get the success that he's gotten, and then your own shortcomings keep you from being as successful and as loved as you want to be, and you react to it this way, the only question to ask is, how bad do you want this? What you found yourself in? Is this what you wanted? If not, then start taking steps in that direction rather than saying you want to go to another situation. Start saying you want to get out of the NBA, period. Define that for yourself. That's what I would tell Ben. Define that. Don't just assume you understand what you're thinking and this feeling. You understand what you're feeling, because everything you're doing is irrational. Literally, just about everything you've done over the last couple weeks has been irrational. So give some thought to that. Are you sure you want to play ball professionally for the NBA? And are you sure you understand what it means to be in the NBA? Because being on the Philadelphia 76ers for the last 7 years did not necessarily give him the full spectrum of what it means to be in the NBA. And see, that's what's screwed up also. It's like not everybody has the same experience in the league, man. Not everybody is getting rosy paths through this NBA. Just because a guy makes a certain amount and is in a league does not mean he's going through the experience that the next guy is living. That's not the dream this guy's living. This guy's living a crappy life in the NBA. As to where that guy's making a bunch of money, probably even the same money, and is having a great path because he's in good situations that fit him, etc. Philadelphia, pressure for Ben Simmons. Got to shoot the ball. We don't care nothing about your strengths. Pay attention to your weaknesses. You do this, you do that. We don't like it. We'd rather you do this. It's just a bunch of that. We're not talking about how he's the best player defensively, maybe in basketball. I'm not talking about how much of a facilitating genius he is and how many passes he can make that others can't. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking about, is he okay? Is he going to shoot the basketball? Can he play with Joel Embiid? Is he mad at Doc Rivers? That's Philly talk. If he played for the Dallas Mavericks, he wouldn't be going through this. If he played for Sacramento Kings, Minnesota Timberwolves, Toronto Raptors, these narratives would have never even came into play. His NBA experience hasn't necessarily been the greatest. But what I would say is you've accomplished a lot in those circumstances, so that should tell you that your NBA career ain't in vain. And at the end of the day, the situation you're in has never been that good. So I don't blame you for wanting to leave there. I'm not mad at you for being mad. I may look at you and say you shouldn't be mad about what just happened as it pertains to you giving them this much energy for that thing. But this energy may be warranted for the last 7 years of what he's seen in Philadelphia. He's mad enough. He has a right to be mad enough about what has happened for the last 7 years, in my mind. He can be this mad about that. So, that's only my opinion. It don't mean it's nothing. But what I will tell you is this. Philly looks the worst to me, not Ben. Ben looks like he's potentially going through a very serious mental health episode of some sort. And the Philadelphia 76ers would be gracious as to assist him in facilitating his peace. That's the right display. You are not inclined to do that. He hasn't done anything to deserve that. But seeing the fruit and doing it anyway is wise. My name is BDO44. Thank y'all for watching me ramble. I'm out.